Hello and welcome to another session on Spectrum. We started with No Men Are Foreign. We completed 2 stanzas. Now we are to start the 3rd stanza. And the 3rd stanza it goes like this. Remember, they have eyes like ours that wake or sleep, and strength that can be won by love. In every land is common life that all can recognize and understand. So the poet reminds us that even foreigners have eyes and organs just like us. They are humans just like us. They are not aliens. So why is it that we look at them as different from us? Now this has a metaphorical meaning also. It's not just that they have eyes and ears and organs just like us that makes us humans. It is much more than that. So there is a deeper meaning to this base meaning of those lines here. There is a metaphorical meaning. This means that these eyes like ours that wake or sleep is a reference to the beginning and end of a day. We wake and sleep every day, right? Likewise, our days and night account the days hard work, the days people that we meet around, the lives, our daily activities, our happiness, our sorrow, and so on. So everyone around the world has a story at the end of the day. So they wake and sleep. Their daily activities is what is being mentioned here. The metaphorical meaning to this is the daily activities, the account of the various happenings during the day, just like you and me. So every day is filled with a new beginning. Every day is filled with a new hope. There would be a lot of things, anticipations, there are a lot of happiness as well as sorrow, and so many things that are to happen in the day of a particular person. So it's not just us having happiness and sorrow. They also have happiness and sorrow, and that every eyes and ears is in fact a metaphorical meaning of their daily activities. നമ്മൾ ഓരോ ദിവസവും ഓരോ ദിവസത്തിൽ ഓരോ പ്രത്യേകതകളുണ്ട്. എല്ലാ ദിവസവും ഒരേപോലെയല്ല. ഓരോ ദിവസത്തിനും ഓരോ പ്രത്യേകതകളുണ്ട്. ചിലപ്പോൾ ചില ദിവസങ്ങൾ നമ്മൾ ഒരുപാട് ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന ചില കാര്യങ്ങൾ നടക്കാൻ ആഗ്രഹിക്കുന്ന നമ്മളതിനെ പറ്റി ഓർത്ത് ഇരിക്കുന്ന ചില ദിവസങ്ങളായിരിക്കും. ആഗ്രഹത്തോടെ ഇരിക്കുന്ന ഒരു ദിവസങ്ങളായിരിക്കും. ആ സമയത്താണ് ഒരു വാർ നടക്കുന്നതെങ്കിൽ it puts an end to that dream of ours. So it's not just that the war destroys the peace or there is a lot of destruction in the buildings are destroyed and lives are lost, but also it is a reference to how they can totally destroy a person, totally destroy the happiness and the life of a person. Not just a person here, a person is a reference to everyone in the world. So it's not just one country fighting against the other country and winning victory. It's about how these fight and how these war affect everyone. That is why the poet says, remember, they have eyes and ears like ours. So their life is also, their daily activities are filled with a lot of things, a lot of happiness, a lot of dreams about the future. So when there is a war, it is the destruction of these dreams. It is a terrible loss. It's not just loss of the buildings and the infrastructure and the economy, the drain of economic resources. It's also not just the loss of lives, but loss of happiness. A woman waiting for her husband who is fighting in the war, or she's expecting a baby and she's waiting for him to return, and he goes to war, he never returns. So there is a loss of life there. The soldier loses his life, at the same time the woman loses her entire life. She now becomes a widow. The child does not get to see the father. So there is a complete stop, or the whole life comes to a standstill, right? So that is a metaphorical meaning of this daily activities. Daily activities does not mean every day to day, waking up in the morning, doing work, going for work, earning money. Life consists of everything. Life is about happiness and sorrow, your hopes, your desires, your dreams, your future, everything. So when there is a war, all this is destroyed. So it is not just happening to our enemy countries, it happens to us also. It happens to everybody in this world. So remember, war is destructive. That's what the poet says. So he tells us to keep in mind that God has bestowed our enemies or the foreigners that we call with similar appearance to us. God has given them similar eyes, similar that open and shut like ours. God has also given them the strength which we need, which we can win through love. Now here is the most important thing. Or sleep and strength that can be won by love. So that sentence, that line there, and the strength or sleep, remember they have eyes like ours that wake or sleep, and strength that can be won by love. So the poet tells us that we are all same. God has given us, all of us, the same appearance. Same appearance in the sense we are blessed with human beings. We look alike. We look the same. We are not different from one another. And God has done justice there. And not just that. There is nothing in this world, there is no strength as powerful and strong as love. Hatred is not the answer. So he's speaking totally, he's trying to tell you that war is futile, war is useless. There is no point wasting your life hating one another. Why do you want to hate one another? When things can be won by love, why do you want to hate? There is nothing so strong than love. So he says, the poet says, strength that can be won by love. All of us are given that strength. Every human beings are given that strength. Deep inside us, it is we who fill ourselves with hatred than love. So instead of filling ourselves with this poison, hatred, why can't we take out that strength that God has given us? The strength, what is the strength here? The strength refers to our the love. So love is the most powerful thing that God has given us, and we can win over anything through love. And on every land, life is the most common thing. Every land, if you look at every land, life is something that is common to everyone. And thus we start to realize something. And what do we realize? Realize that they are just like us. They have feelings, they have sorrow, they love, they can love, right? And once we start realizing that there is no difference, once we, as I told you in the initial classes, our boundary, നമ്മളെ ഡിമാർക്കേറ്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ബൗണ്ടറീസ് എല്ലാം എടുത്ത് കളഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ there will be no countries. Instead, the whole world will be one. There won't be any difference between you, us and the foreigners. we won't call ourselves Indians, Americans, Europeans, or the Australians, or we don't call ourselves black and white, Hindu and Muslim. We become one human species. So all these things, that is, he says, these countries, the borders that we have, it's not just borders about the country borders that's to do with our boundary lines. It's also anything. This border refers to anything that divides us and makes us look different from the other. Like, I am a Christian, you are a Hindu, that's also a border. He says, why do you want to think like that? All of us are the same. We belong to one and only one, and the sole God. We are children of God. Why can't we start thinking of that superpower, and why can't we start thinking about one another as brothers and sisters instead of sowing the seed of hatred? Every religion, after all, teaches us to love, not to hate. So why do you want to fill ourselves with this poison of hatred? Every human being, all of us, you and me, are bestowed with the strength of love. And all we have to do is take out this most powerful thing, love, and we can conquer anything and everything. And there won't be any need for a war. War arises from what? Hatred. Once we overcome that enemy, hatred, with love, there won't be any war. All right. So that's what he says. So by using the image of eyes that wake and sleep, the poet metaphorically tells us the beginning and end of a day, that is their daily life, how they live, how they work, how they rest, their feelings, their happiness, their sorrows, their hopes, their dreams, everything, just like you and me. Similarly, the poet also stresses on love, how love can win or fight hatred, and everything surrenders in front of love. Thus, this hatred for one another or another country and its people can be removed if we look upon ourselves and the others as human beings or as children of God, and love one another as brothers and sisters. So thus the very aspect of war is eliminated here. Then once we start loving our brothers and sisters, or our others, our foreigners, our enemies as our brothers and sisters, then there is no need for a war. Once we love them, once we overcome them with our most powerful weapon, and that is love, there won't be any fight. There won't be any wars, riots. Okay, so what we have to do is we have to take away this, or overcome this poisonous thing called hatred, and we have to overcome this with or through love. Now let's move on to stanza 4. In every land is common life that all can recognize and understand. Let us remember, whenever we are old, to hate our brothers, it is ourselves that we shall dispossess, betray and condemn. So this stanza is very important, extremely important, because it is here. Till now, the poet has not been saying much about war. He has not come to telling us about war. Here in this stanza, the central theme of the poem is brought out. And what is the central theme of the poem? Which is ultimately revealed in the stanza 4, the 4th stanza. He wants us readers, including himself. So he's telling himself, reminding himself also. So he's telling everyone both to the readers and also to himself, that if someone hates the other in the name of the country, it is one's own self that he hates. By poisoning others with that deadly poison of hate or hatred, we start hating our brothers, our fellow human beings. If we look upon our brothers and sisters in Pakistan and Afghanistan as our deadly enemies, we will start to hate them. If the government or if the people, whoever is trying to spread, even see such trolls, some trolls are there, right? And also certain way of, some people love to inject this seed of hatred in the name of religion, in the name of a different country, nationality and so on. So if such people are sowing that seed of hatred, remember, he's telling them, remember, what you are doing is, you are not just condemning others, you are not just hating others, but you are hating yourself. What you do is, you deprive yourself of your good or your pure mind. You are poisoning your own mind. So when we deprive them, when we go on war, when we fight against them, so it's not just about us Indians towards the Pakistanis, it is also about the Pakistanis' realization to us. So it should happen. So here when James is speaking, he is not just speaking about himself or from one particular country alone. He is speaking to the whole world, to all the readers of different nationalities. So he is telling them, if you try to sow the seed of hatred in others, then, and if you go on war, what you're doing is, you are depriving, your hatred is all that is need to go on war. You start hating somebody, you start going, or you will go to the extent of waging a war against them. And what you do there is, you deprive them of their land, you deprive them of their peace, you deprive them of their happiness, their life, you are cheating them. You are killing the innocent ones, because hatred has sown that poisonous, terrible, poisonous gas, where you have released the greatest nuclear weapon of all. Whatever happened to Pearl Harbor, whatever happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki is out of hatred. Whatever happened in the First World War and the Second World War is out of hatred, is out of that feeling of hatred towards one another, to another country, to subjugate them, to conquer them. Now again, to conquer them because of greed, because of political reasons, it's again to do with hatred. There is this seed of hatred that grows into different, either it grows into cruel ambition like Napoleon had in the beginning. He was fine, but then later he became ambitious. Just like that, you have Hitler. Hitler came with the hope of being a solution, but he turned out to be the worst human the world had ever seen. A maniac. So likewise, deep inside, so what happened to these people? Deep inside there is this seed of hatred, and this seed of hatred is what is being propagated, or this is being passed on to one another. It's just like corona. You give a shake hand and you pass the virus, just like that. It's much more deadly than corona. It's much more deadly than this COVID-19. Hatred that passes more quickly than COVID-19. And COVID-19, at least you recover. Some of us would at least recover. Only very few who are, few in the sense, yes, death rates are high, but still not everybody is affected. But hatred on the other hand is not like that. Once hatred is sown, that person dies. He is dead. Unless and until he realizes his mistake and shuns hatred forever, he cannot come back. So hatred is a deadly thing that causes destruction, that will kill you. So then it is this hatred that was responsible for Napoleon, Hitler, Mussolini, all these people who were engaged in war to kill or to wage war. And what happened is they are destroying, they have already spread this hatred towards their country fellows, and they start hating the other country. And what happens is there is a war, and in the war the enemies, they lose their happiness, their life, they are cheated. And eventually, whom are we cheating? Whom are we destroying? Whose life are we destroying? We are destroying ourselves. We are destroying our own life. So he says this war, this thing where don't think that when somebody tells you to win a particular or victory is all about hating somebody else. And when somebody sows the seed of hatred, remember, he says, you are killing yourself, you are condemning yourself, you are cheating yourself. You are not just cheating them, you are also cheating yourself. So further he adds that waging war against each other, the loss is common in both ends or both the sides. There is destruction not just in our place, but there is not just in the enemy's land, but also in our land. It's not just your enemy that is deprived and cheated, but yourself. Your life too. The soldiers who's going on war, they too lose their life. Just like the soldier who's been killed in the other side. He too loses his life. Both the sides, if you look at both the sides, the soldiers or the families of both these soldiers, their life has come to an end, a standstill. They lose. So the two countries in war, the destruction is the same to him or her. Both the countries, again, economy, the infrastructure, the economy. Our economy, both the countries who are engaged in war, both the economy is drained of its resources. It will take time to come back. The citizens are affected, which again will when we celebrate success, there are so many of us who has lost their life, where the life has come to a standstill. We speak about independence, we speak about our victory in the war, but eventually what happens is the people who has lost their families, who have become handicapped, who have fought the war, and then what victory is to them? The victory here is nothing actually. How can they celebrate victory when they have lost everything? So here he stresses on the point that we must understand it before drawing weapons against one another. ഒരു ചൊല്ലുണ്ട് മലയാളത്തിൽ, വാളെടുത്തവൻ വാളാൽ എന്നുള്ളത്. So it is war is not a solution, not an answer. So let's get to the fifth stanza. Till now we have the first, second and the third stanza spoke about, or through the first, second and third stanza the poet tried to tell us the importance of considering everyone as equal. In the fourth stanza, the most important stanza, he brings the important, or he reveals the theme of the poem, and that is about sowing the seeds of hatred, and thereby we get to know that it is all about war. So it is a anti-war poem, and the fifth stanza is the concluding stanza. So what happens in during a war. You may have seen, perhaps you may not have, or seen movies on the first, showing the horrors of the First and the Second World War, but you may have seen certain movies that spoke of war, right? Or where there is, the whole movie is to deal with war. So what happens during a war? There is a lot of destruction. As we spoke earlier, there's a lot of destruction, not just from if it's say one country versus the other country, or the war is against two countries. It's not just that the destruction happens in just one section of, or the weaker section of the weaker part, it's, or the weak country. It's, the destruction is to both the section, right? There is a lot of atomic or nuclear bombs that are used, a lot of destruction, lot of dirt and dust, fire, tires burning, people dying, animals, people losing their lives, dead bodies on the everywhere, lying everywhere. So what happens is, it's not just destruction as of destruction of the building, destruction of the lives, but also destruction of earth. Right? Earth loses its purity. The beauty of earth is lost. So the earth is defiled. That's what the poet says. So look at that lines. Look at those lines, dear children. It is the human earth that we defile. Our hells of fire and dust outrage the innocence of air that is everywhere our own. Remember, no men are foreign and no countries strange. So there is, he talks about the extended impact of the war, and war not just affects us or not just affects the lives of the people on earth, but it also makes the earth dirty. It elevates the problem of pollution, air pollution, soil pollution, water pollution, and it elevates the problem of global warming. So it's a threat. War is as such a threat to what? Threat to humanity, threat to the whole world, threat to the environment. If environment becomes impure, then none of us will remain on earth. Life sustenance, environment, pure environment is the very aspect of life sustenance. It is it only if we have clear or pure water to drink, pure air to breathe, can we live on this planet. So when there is a war, it's not just the loss of lives, it's not just the drainage of resources, but also the environment, the whole environment, the nature is affected. Birds, animals lose their habitat, forests are destroyed, the whole world, the whole land is destroyed. Tires, when the tires burn, you know that you are not supposed to burn tires, but when tires, you often see tires burning, cars and vehicles are burnt, right? So, and there's a lot of nuclear weapons released, which releases terrible and very harmful gases in the atmosphere. So what we are doing, we are in fact dirtying the whole air. So the fire and dust of war, see the fire, our hells of fire and dust outrage the innocence of air. The hells of fire, what are the hells of fire? War, due to war, the weapons that we use are hells of fire and dust outrage. So the fire and dust that occurs due to the war, it defiles or destroys the pure earth, the innocence of air. The pure air is, or air becomes impure, and which again is the birthright. This air that we breathe, does it belong to any particular country? The wind, can we tell the wind, do not blow to that country, be here, stay here? The wind blows, it's free, it blows. right? It doesn't have any restrictions as of Indian wind and Pakistani wind or the American wind and the British wind. The wind is free to flow anywhere it likes, and the air that we breathe, if a foreigner comes here to our country, we cannot ask him, stop breathing, you can't breathe our air, can you? No, air, water and land is common to everyone. It is everybody's, not just pertaining to one section of the society or one section of the country, one section of the world. It is for everyone. So whenever a war happens, it leads to a lot of bloodshed and death also. Now, another instance that I would like to bring to your attention is the Spanish flu. You may have heard of the Spanish flu during this pandemic, the COVID-19. There were a lot of talks and news on Spanish flu as well. Spanish flu is something that happened during the First World War. Now, this Spanish flu was the main reason for the Spanish flu is because of the weapons that they used, the harmful gases that they used, the very dirty conditions in which the soldiers lived, adding to it the corpses that were decaying in water as well as decaying on the land. There's nobody to bury the dead. Those are dead, they lay there. There's nobody to bury the dead. So the dead bodies were heaped on top of the other, and from that rotten dead bodies, decaying corpses, there emitted a lot of terrible germs, which led to Spanish flu. And Spanish flu was responsible for it wiped out 1/3 of the population of the world, it seems, just like our COVID-19, but much more terrifying and terrible than COVID-19. COVID-19 is not as terrible as the Spanish flu, it seems. So why? What happened? What is the reason? That is again the war. War is the reason for it. Unhealthy, crowded, terrible condition, dirty condition in which the soldiers lived, the gases that they used, that was one major reason. The gases that they used, which was let loose or which was let to the air, that was one reason for the Spanish flu. So what we are doing is, because of a war, we are dirtying the environment. The whole environment is getting dirty. The impact is terrible and terrifying. So the dead bodies, they accumulate on the earth and they make the earth very impure. With all these things, situations considered, the loss is common to everyone. It's not just to the winning country or the the country that has lost in the war. It is also for the country that has won victory in the war. They also have lost their lives. Their atmosphere is also dirtied because they have been using these gases. They have been firing. The enemies have been have retaliated. They have fired. So it is common to both the sides. The air is dirtied from both the sides. Finally, we come to the last line of the poem. Remember, no men are foreign and no countries strange. So he comes, the first line of the poem is again repeated here in the last or the concluding line of the poem, and he uses this on purpose. This line is repeated on purpose to recharge us with the idea that everything is common and everyone is equal. So stop thinking about yourself in terms of your nationality, in terms of racial, or in terms of your blood, in terms of your religion, in terms of race. So stop behaving like maniacs and start thinking about ourselves as equal. We are brothers and sisters belonging to the earth. We are not aliens to one another. We are not foreigners to one another. So it was first, so he recharges or reiterates the idea that we must stop thinking ourselves as strange, or we must stop thinking ourselves thinking or looking at others as strangers or foreigners. And once we remove these boundaries from the earth, we no longer belong to a particular country, but rather to one and the same earth, and we belong to one species, and that is the human species, where we look upon each other with love, the most powerful passion ever, the most pure passion ever, that is love. And when we do that, this very thing called war will come to an end. It ceases to exist. So hatred is not what we need. Hatred, that poisonous gas, is just like the poisonous gas that is used in war, during the war, the nuclear weapons that emit poisonous gas. Just like that, hatred is also a kind of gas that is emitted, and that poisons our very being, that poisons us, our mind, our body, and we start thinking or we start behaving like lunatics or maniacs. We wage destruction. So instead, let us overcome all that through love, which is a very powerful emotion, and with that we will be able to look upon others as our brothers and sisters, and then no men will be foreign and no countries strange. So with that we come to an end of the poem No Men Are Foreign. Now we shall discuss the question answers. I shall discuss the question answers. I will be discussing the important points. Okay, the important points shall be discussed, and I want you to write it down in your notebook. Since it's an online class, and I will not be able to correct your notes, I shall give you the points, and I want you to write them down neatly in your notebook. All right. So till then, keep safe. Thank you, and keep safe.